The Chicago Bulls have somehow won 3 straight games, and doing so in beating the defending champion Boston Celtics on their own home court in dramatic fashion as well, with Joe Mazzulla, who is normally a pretty stoic guy, lose his mind after the final buzzer in wanting to go toe-to-toe with Tony Brothers, where his staff had to pull him away and escort him to the locker room. Frustrations mounted from the Celtics, technicals were given out to Mazzulla, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. The Bulls had these guys worked up and beside themselves. Now, maybe some of the officiating was a little the refs were maybe getting a little triggered, but honestly, I don't know that it really would have impacted the outcome of the game that much because the Bulls actually played incredibly well in holding their own against the best team in the NBA. The second best offensive team in the league with a 120.7 offensive rating, holding them to just 108 points, which was their second lowest total scoring output this whole season. Look, man, I tweeted this during the game. I think it was at the end of the third quarter that, hey, the Bulls are going to end up winning this game, and some Bulls fans are going to be up in arms because, one, that 2025 pick, right, a win that most of us probably thought this was going to be a loss, and now puts the Bulls tied for 8th in the Eastern Conference and just 2 games back of the 6th seed. A game like this is a game that could hurt the Bulls from keeping that pick. But then, 2, Josh Giddey was out this game, and now everyone is going to say, see, I told you, Giddey sucks. The Bulls are clearly better without him. And of course, as soon as the Bulls finished out the game, I see a flurry of all of those comments all over social media highlighting these exact things. Now, let me address both of these points, and I can't remember if I mentioned this in my last video. I don't think people realize it's probably already too late for the Bulls to really tank, like really tank, where they're going to get a top 2 or 3 pick, which is where the franchise players are going to be. The teams below them, outside of the Sixers, are not suddenly just going to go on winning streaks. They're all tanking as well. So I think Bulls fans need to realize and almost accept the fact that because the East is just that bad, there is a real world where the Bulls lose that pick. And while that is frustrating and it's definitely not ideal and really limits the Bulls when it comes to their overall rebuild, at the end of the day, I look at it this way. It's one draft pick, one pick. Would we like to have that pick? Absolutely. Could the Bulls somehow get incredibly lucky and land Cooper Flagg, Ace Bailey, or Ron Harper's son? I'm blanking on his first name. Sure. On like less than 3% chance of them actually getting that, but the pick could also end up being Wendell Carter Jr. 2.0. And maybe that's just me deluding myself or coping with the fact that the Bulls pick is likely going to go to San Antonio, but to me, I really don't think it's the end-all be-all that most Bulls fans believe it to be. It's one pick, and we have the data, the history of high draft picks not panning out, while you also can find gems, sometimes superstars, later on in the draft like Jokic, Giannis, even SGA, who went in the late lottery. Not saying that it matters because the Bulls aren't going to have their pick, I'm just saying for future picks as well. But anyway, enough rambling about that, and as it relates to Josh Giddey, look, I don't think anyone will deny that the Bulls are clearly a better defensive team when Giddey isn't on the court. That's not a surprise to anyone. That said, I do think what people fail to realize is that more recently, Josh Giddey's on-court numbers have actually been better to the point where he now has a positive box plus minus on the season. And this is for a team that has an overall negative net rating. He's been impacting winning more. And that would even include the Bulls' defensive rating when he's on the court. One game where the Bulls play well and have their most impressive win on the season does not instantly lead to the conclusion that Josh Giddey sucks and the Bulls are better off without him. Like, the Bulls did not move the ball that well tonight on offense. They had a near low 23 assists and fewer transition fast break points. The Bulls just benefited from the Celtics having a very poor shooting night and Zach Lavine looking like a superstar out there. So while I'm not normally one to defend Giddey and have been critical of his play this season, no, one game does not define who he is or his role on the Bulls. The other thing I'll say after watching this game, and it's more of an observation from this season as a whole, this Chicago Bulls team, in my view, is a better team than the team we saw last season, despite the fact that they traded away their 2 best players. Like, I know some will say that's nonsense, it's recency bias, and don't get me wrong, this team still has a lot of flaws, but this team plays harder, they play faster, obviously, we already know that, and above everything else, they play as a team. They play for each other. And that isn't a shot at DeMar DeRozan or Alex Caruso. Those guys were some of my favorite players from last season, but fit chemistry is sometimes everything in the NBA. Because on paper, this team shouldn't be better than the team they had last year. They lost their leading scorer and all-star, and also one of the best defenders in the game. And then also got younger with less experience than they did last season. And now they're playing like a better team. Now, obviously, if the Bulls trade Zach, Vooch, even Lonzo Ball, that's going to change things, and then they won't be better. But if they somehow stay as currently constructed throughout the whole season, I wouldn't be surprised if they make the playoffs. Part of it is because the East is just that bad, but also because they're a pretty solid offensive team. And this league is run on offense right now, particularly three-point shooting, which we all know. And the Bulls are now one of the best three-point shooting teams in the entire NBA. They're not great on defense, we know that, but in today's NBA, it just doesn't matter as much as it once did. Not saying I like that, it actually bothers me, and part of the reason why I struggle watching the NBA today, but they're playing modern day NBA basketball and it's working out for them better than it did last season. I just realized I haven't even talked that much about this game. I mean, give the Bulls credit. They were giving the Celtics problems. They were guarding the perimeter very well. They held the C's to just 25% shooting from three. They punished them on the boards. Like, the Celtics gave up way too many second chance points. There should be no reason the Bulls should have gotten so many offensive rebounds when they're one of the worst offensive rebounding teams in the league. And the Bulls pushed the pace, they got downhill, finished at the rim. The Bulls also took care of the ball well against a very good defensive team, just 10 turnovers. They got great contributions on the bench yet again, this time from Julian Phillips, who had a great game on both ends. Same with Lonzo. Still hasn't been shooting it well, but impacting the floor defensively and was a plus 10 on the night. Ayo, yet another great outing, 17 points, 7 for 14, 3 for 5 from 3, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, a team high plus 17 when he was on the court. He killed the Celtics when they would fall asleep in transition and really took over in the fourth quarter to create that separation where the Celtics felt defeated by that point. Vucevic kind of got killed in the paint on defense, but he handled his own against Horford and Porzingis on offense with 16 points, 14 rebounds, 7 for 9 overall, 4 assists as well. And then, man, Patrick Williams even had a solid game. 14 points, knocked down 4 threes, hit a big three late in the fourth quarter that really sealed it in my view. And then, of course, Zach doing Zach things. I mean, his mindset right now is just, I'm going to play my game and not think about anything else. All those trade rumors, the direction of this team, he's just hooping. And there was nothing the Celtics could do to stop him tonight. There was a moment where he hit a step back three on Derek White, and White just threw his hands up like, what do I even do? 36 points, though, for Zach Lavine. 11 for 19, 6 for 11 from three, 6 rebounds, 4 assists. I'm also happy, by the way, because I just picked him up in a trade in my fantasy league. But anyway, I don't know, man. This team is better than most people think, and their schedule is only going to get easier. It's going to be interesting to see how these next few weeks play out with the trade deadline around the corner and where the Bulls find themselves in the standings. I'm just going along for the ride right now. I'd love to hear what you guys think, though. Let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.